Are you ready to go? Okay. So, hello everybody. Welcome to our community report out session. My name is Phoenix, and I'd like to just take a moment to again welcome you. Before we get into this evening's presentation and discussion, we really wanted to take a moment to honor QC and those whose hearts are really feeling the loss of her in our lives, in our community. And we're going to take a moment of silence to just hold that space for someone who is and will remain dear to this community and to this center as one of the co-founders. Thank you very much. I did not have the privilege of knowing QC. I only had the privilege of being in her presence a couple of times long ago, but I know she is very dear to the center and many members of this community. So thank you. My name is Phoenix Kawamoto, and my pronouns are they, them, and I am privileged to serve with the co-president, co-chair of the LGBTQ Plus Center of the Hudson Valley. Jim, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jim Walker, co-chair of the LGBTQ Plus Center. I'm very proud to be serving along with the board and Phoenix.
Thank you. So we have a lot of ground to cover this evening. And again, I want to thank everyone for being here tonight, taking the time to hear our updates and also do our best to answer questions and have some dialogue. We'll go into more of that as we continue, okay? In the absence of, in respect of time, we're going to try to be as kind of focused as possible. So I'm going to move into what you're seeing in the chat is Liz is putting in really our goals for tonight. For those people who, both for those who were present on the listening panel on July 25th, and have seen a letter that was presented to the board, as well as concerns, requests, or demands, depending on the language being used. The board wrote a response not just to the members of the Queer Alliance of Kingston who presented that letter to the board, but also to the members of the entire community, in recognition that we are, as a center here, doing our best to serve the entire community, which is a pretty diverse and incredible community and a tall order, and we recognize that. So we want to make it really clear that this evening is about acknowledging what we as a board have heard and received as part of that listening session. And this is kind of how we spoke during the July 25th session, that we would come back tonight and share with you the goals and steps that have been created in response to what we've heard, provide an overview of what steps have been taken to date. So this is what you can expect to hear from us. Identify preliminary next steps that are in the early planning phase, and then invite questions and feedback about the steps we have identified, provide clarity when necessary and possible for this evening, and we fully commit to answering additional questions that may need further discussion and research at a later date and in a format that will be accessible to the community. Okay. Jim, is there anything you want to add before we move further into tonight's agenda?
No, not really. I'm excited to hear some feedback on what we've gotten done, as well as hear whatever new questions that might come out. The only thing I will say is if there are questions that we cannot answer at this time, we will make sure that we get those noted and get back to everyone in a reasonable amount of time. Just remembering that we are a board, right? And boards meet once a month. And you need to give us time to digest whatever else might come out. But right now, I feel very happy with what we've done, and hopefully you do too.
Great, thank you. So the ground rules as we move further into the evening will be, again, in accordance with what we're striving for, which is to create a safe space for the community to come together in open communication, no hateful or discriminatory speech. If this occurs, you will be muted. And when we get to the Q&A part, we'll go into a little more detail as far as what that format looks like, and the need to raise hands in the participant section. And I'll go into the other format. So right now, as you know, right, this session is being recorded. Everyone is muted until we get to the Q&A, and then it'll be raising of hands. And when your time for your question is ready and you're up in the queue, so to speak, you'll be unmuted and you'll be able to ask your question. And you'll be unmuted. Each person during the Q&A, we're going to ask, because we really want to hear from as many people as possible, we're going to ask folks to keep their questions to a minute or less. And we will do our best to answer your question. As Jim just said, if it's a question that requires research, reflection, or respectful consideration, we will document the question and discuss it at the upcoming board meeting, and we'll be figuring out how the best way to get those responses to the community as a whole. That yet has not been determined what format we would use. And yes, the session is being recorded, so we can refer back to it. And so one of the things that's really important, and I think a lot of folks are familiar with this, is that whenever you're doing, whether it's a self-assessment or any kind of program assessment, it's really important to be able to identify strengths and opportunities for growth and improvement, right? A lot of times our minds might focus more so on, just by the way humans are wired, to focus on the things that are a problem in our mind. And I'm not dismissing that. I'm just saying things that we identify as problematic tend to take the front seat. And it can be really easy to lose sight of the progress that's been made. I know that's been in my personal experience. So we really wanted to start tonight with some of that positive, because it's really important to acknowledge the tremendous things that have been accomplished at the center by the staff and community together, working together with volunteers. We couldn't do it without all of your help. And so we've taken a moment, and we're going to just go through kind of a top 10 list of the recent past of accomplishments that people are feeling good about. So number one, created and opened the LGBTQ Wellbeing Institute, offering free and individual group counseling and expanding our health and wellness programming. 2, secured multi-year funding from the county to launch an anti-cyberbullying campaign.
3 was part of a small group that wrote Ulster County human rights law protecting all who live in Ulster County that passed unanimously in the legislature. We had our largest attendance at our Pride marches and festivals, totaling over 2,500 individuals, and broke revenue records.
5, brought in a record number of sponsors who were amazing to work with and helped us to grow the center into what it is today. And we tripled the number of programs for our youth and held our very first LGBTQ plus youth conference, QueerCon.
Doubled the offerings for the TGGNC community and created new programs for older LGBTQ adults. Doubled the attendance at our annual gala and almost tripled the revenue at the event to support all programs being done at the center.
Sorry for my enthusiastic double G there. I'm responsible. All right. Brought in many new individual, corporate, and foundation funders. And 10, overall at the center, we have been able to double our annual budget and more than quadrupled the programs and services at the center. So while, it's not, quote unquote, all about the money is really imperative that we have in order to be able to hire the staff and to provide the services that we hope to continue to grow. So this has been a huge accomplishment of the center, especially in the last 4 years. So we just want to make sure that we start with that. And I'm going to take this moment to move us into addressing the action items that the board has identified through and started to already implement in response to the concerns brought to us through the membership of the Queer Alliance of Kingston.
I'm going to start with making the Hudson Valley LGBTQ Center more handicap compliant. We met with the rep from RCAL to go over options. We reached out to Kingston zoning and compliance staff to see what we can do. Just to give you a little bit of background on this, this is not new to the center, not something we had not recognized before. The center put in a lift in 2010 to afford access to the second floor. There were tenants on the third floor at the time, and programs and staff were on one first floor and the second floor. Part of that is the growth of the center, not anticipating that we would be growing as fast and doing as well. And then we let the tenants go and took on that space. All programming occurs on the first and second. And if an individual wants to meet with staff, we go to the second floor to meet with them. An estimate for install an elevator, because you can't expand the current lift, is between $300,000 and $450,000. We have used the current ramp on John Street for close to a decade, and while this is not by any means ideal, does offer those who need it access to the center. The bilingual information. Renita, our office manager, is in the process of translating program literature and flyers into Spanish. We're looking into the best way to have interpreters utilized at events. If you know someone who is Spanish speaking and is an interpreter, or could be, please reach out to us. We have a contact for those who are hearing impaired, which we have used when needed, and it has been successful. We just need advance notice to make sure we can hire someone.
3, the community needs assessment. So we're in the process of identifying other organizations and key individuals for best practices. And then we will put out an RFP to look at who, as an independent third party, can work in conjunction with staff and the work group that has formed on the board to start to move that forward. In addition, the new board members. So the job description for a board member and the board application is now on the website under the Board of Directors tab. Any and all community members are encouraged to review information, and if interested, please fill out the application and send it to the email address that has been created and is on the website for the board of directors, and it is centerboard@lgbtqcenter.org. The give get kind of the fund, some of the funding, fundraising, not fundraising, but financial contribution part of the board membership has been removed from the duties of a board member. That would maybe eliminate, right, or serve as a barrier for some members in the community. And just so folks know, that was done really immediately in response to the question, the concern being raised. And I think even that night on the 25th, I had even expressed that it had been, even a hardship for me at times. And so we knew this, we'd been having some discussion, and that was done immediately.
Website feedback. We now have a link on our homepage and a Google form to allow feedback from any community member. This can be done anonymously if desired, or if you would like follow-up, please provide your contact information. Update the center's name to be inclusive. The board unanimously voted to change the center name to the Hudson Valley LGBTQ+ Community Center, and that too was done almost immediately. We are in the process of updating our certificate of incorporation to make the change official.
Build and rebuild all relationships with other Hudson Valley Center and LGBTQ organizations to better represent the full Hudson Valley. We will continue, it already has started, we will continue to reach out to other organizations for collaboration as we have in the past. We have strong relationships and support events sponsored by In Our Own Voices and the Pride Center in Albany, along with the Loft in Westchester and Rockland Pride. We have recently been in touch with the Newburgh Center and GLSEN and are looking forward to reconnecting with Duchess Pride. And so the goal in that is much along the lines of collaboration, support. There's a lot of important conversation that is happening in that area. Conducting an investigation of all allegations made against the executive director. We have hired outside counsel to investigate the claims, and the interview process is nearly complete. Once complete, the board will discuss next steps in accordance with the laws that govern this organization, and we are legally responsible to uphold. My apologies for my sound. I will see if I can switch to a different device.
Board communication and transparency. The board commits to being more accessible to the community, committed to 2 town halls annually, easy access by email by centerboard, lgbtqcenter.org. We'll create a landing page on the website that will have progress reports and other board-related communication and material. Commitment to self-reflection. The members of the Hudson Valley LGBTQ+ Community Center have been and remain committed to self-reflection, personal growth, and striving to do what is necessary to facilitate and enhance the growth and evolution of the center in accordance with our mission statement on all levels. We, like so many individuals living in this important time of this nation and global family history, are responding to the call to action. We will continue to seek guidance on and implement best practices that support and honor all of the members of this community, working with staff, community members, and allies to repair relationships that have been damaged or are in need of amends or a change.
Thank you, Jim. So at this point, we will open things up for the Q&A. So just a refresher. So if you have a question, we're going to ask that you keep your question to a minute or less so that we can get in as many people as possible. If we were to exhaust people are done with questions and there is remaining time, then we will resume the public comment, a period for public comment using the 3 minutes for comment with a 1 minute warning when you're nearing 1 minute left and a 15-second reminder, please wrap it up kind of thing. Okay. That will all be determined by how many questions we have. And what I would like to let the community know is that I will be quietly excusing myself from this at 8:15 for a family obligation that I have to tend to. So when you see me pop away, if you notice I'm not here at 8:15, you will know why. I just wanted to give you a heads up. Okay. And with that, we will, sure thing, we will start the opening up for questions.
So I'll just quickly remind everyone that to raise your hand in Zoom,
Thank you, Liz.
you go to the participant tab. You will see an option to raise your hand. That is the best way to get me to see to unmute you. If you're having trouble with that, you can also ask in the chat box.
Hi, my name is Ellis. I go by they, them pronouns. Thank you for this response. I hear what was being said about, I figure I'll just start at the beginning, right? I hear what was being said about handicap compliance and reaching out and budget concerns. I was wondering whether, one of the strengths that you identified was the center's really doubling the annual budget and doing very well in fundraising, it sounds like. So I was wondering if there is any kind of a timeline as to when that access to the third floor will be possible, and also when a more usable wheelchair ramp will be possible using your newly found budget.
Phoenix, I'm going to take it. Yes, we have doubled and made a lot of money for the center. The number that I gave you was $300,000 to $450,000. There's doubling and then there's doubling. That's not quite what we've done. The community as well as the center is willing. We're going to be looking for help to reach out, as the center has always done, and to commit or help us raise the money if necessary to get to the third floor. That's important. As far as the ramp, and by no means do we think it's not important to access this center. And Alice, it's important for you to know that our commitment to that building, sometimes you might have to look at the building and say, hey, maybe this is not the building for us at all. Maybe we need to take it somewhere else. So when you sit down as a board and not just react to things, you look at things at a bigger scale. It could be a lot more things that we need to do at the center that building cannot facilitate. We're not sure yet. Mm-hmm. So I would ask that you guys trust, be patient with us, give us a chance as board members and a lot of new board members to make some big decisions. That center has been able to lower in some really big donors. And my team and where I work at was one of them. I'm real candid with Ellis. I'm not LGBTQ, but I love what that center's doing. And what Jeff was able to do to get me there and get me to commit financially to what we do from my corporation for the center is important. There's a lot of that out there. So I don't want you to think that we're thinking small. I'm thinking big, but why spend $450,000 on an elevator where the issue might be we might need a new building altogether, and we can put that toward that.
Yeah.
I hope I answered that question.
Yeah, I just to say on that too, that we are looking at, assessing the current ramp as well and seeing what needs, if a new ramp has to, I mean, there are things that we can do in the immediate, and then there's things like variance, like that, the beauty of that building. And I remember the fight for that location. I remember the fight to be seen and have a space in uptown Kingston, and the pushback and all of that. So I can appreciate the value and the history of that space, and it's a beautiful building. But it's also uptown Kingston, and ramps require, it's 1 foot per 1 inch per, wait, I'm getting it wrong. 1 foot for each inch that the ramp height needs to be. So that's a 7-foot ramp because it's 7 inches to get into the building. So there are things with it being uptown Kingston and sidewalks. There's a lot of considerations, hence why we have reached out, staff has reached out to the folks in charge of ordinances to see what we would even be able to do. And that we're waiting on. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Hi. I guess I'm unmuted because it's my turn, right? I wanted to just mention Queer Alliance did write a response to the board's letter. We sent it out yesterday. I understand if you haven't had a chance to review it as a board, obviously, since you probably didn't meet yesterday, but so that's a thing, and I encourage you to read it, and it's one way to continue the conversation. The question that wasn't answered was the question about a timeline, like how soon can we expect to see accessibility like really happening? And I wanted to mention that what we had said in the demand was that we were demanding checking with local disability activists, so people who actually have disabilities, which is not the same thing as contacting ADA specialists. Because the people who actually would need to get into the building are the people who really need to be heard there. That's it. Thanks.
Okay. Is there a question? I wasn't sure if you had a question.
Well, Alice was asking the timeline, Phoenix.
Okay, sorry, I was listening so much. Thank you.
Yeah, and the question is, are you also asking people who actually have disabilities, or are you only asking an agency that talks about?
Alice, we are going to do a complete assessment to answer your question, yes. We are going to be going out and asking individuals as well. The important part of this is timeline. Again, it goes back to what I said. The things that we can do in short order, we're working on as we speak, right? We still have to abide by some of the advantages of being in downtown Kingston is you're in downtown Kingston. Some of the disadvantages is that you're at the mercy of building inspectors and a lot of things that are a lot different if we were in a different location. So it's a give-get there. So what we're doing is we're going to do as much as we possibly can to increase the access. I agree with everyone on here that we need to get better access there. That being said, we still have to go through the right protocol in order to get it. And we're working diligently to make that happen.
Yeah. And when you work with, and this is just, from my experience, when you're working with multiple systems, things do not go as fast as you might like them to. No, the board meets, just so you know, the board meets on the 4th Monday of the month. Okay, so we did not receive your letter before the board meeting, and we will be sure to be reading it and discussing it at the next board meeting. Okay. Thank you.
So I'm Donna, she, her, and I just don't know if it's a question, but James, I love your description of the expansive thinking of the board with regard to accessibility, because I was dismayed when you said if the staff needs to meet with somebody, they can come down to the 2nd floor, which to me says that there's no way that a staff person with a disability is going to be hired anytime soon. I love the fact that you're really looking at your resources and saying, is this the building to spend all this money on? Do you need to go someplace else? Because I'm wondering in your accessibility, besides the disability one, there's a accessibility to information and resources that the center has in abundance that is non-accessible to the public because of the design of the building, which I don't want to take time. You know how poorly designed it is for the program. So I think this is more of a thank you for expansive thinking. I really would advocate. I love the location, Phoenix. I'm with you. It's fabulous. That's one of the reasons we moved to Kingston when we saw the flags up. But there are multiple accessibility issues. And thank you, Zoe. I want to put a shout out for at least getting bulletin boards up, but they're in a hallway where there are chairs. So it makes it really hard. So it's a lot of work for the board, but I think it really speaks to the future and having room for everybody in the community to get the information and the resources that they want. So that's not a question. Sorry.
Yeah.
The other thing I had, Donna, and I didn't say this or it's not on any form, is, depending on the needs of the center and after we come back from this pandemic and the rest of it, there might, in shorter, we might put space back on the second floor because originally that's where they were and they had access to the second floor. So in my opinion, in my broad thinking, I appreciate you saying that, and the board knows that's just how I operate. Maybe we'll put some space down on the second floor to add to, so we have both, so that we can accommodate if they're handicapped. Again, that building has its shortcomings, and part of this we're talking about is because of the success of the building. I mean, if you think about it, if the LGBTQ Center had not done well, we wouldn't be on the third floor because God knows we needed that tenant's rent when it started, right? So we'd be collecting the rent. And now that we went to the third floor, we said, oops, we can't get up there, everybody. So it's not like we're thinking to cause havoc. We're thinking because this thing is expanding and probably growing faster than most people thought it would. But we, as a board, we can always think about taking some space back and having handicap accessible people. They're near and dear to me. I think it's important. And I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. I'll send you a letter about what things don't work on the first floor at all for people coming in, but thank you.
Yeah.
You're very welcome.
I appreciate, your insight and your service, and that's given you, up close personal vantage point. And right now, as we move forward, that's why this process, as much as it might be really challenging and painful at points, it's really exciting in others, because we recognize that things have a life and they evolve and they change as things grow, right? We have to evolve with it. And as long as we're, all in, and we're all in. It's a question, though, that we have to be able to give things the time that they need to get, as different eyes and minds on this, because I'm limited in lots of ways, right? We each come with our own perspective and experience. So we're looking and reaching out, trying to find those resources, and we'll continue to expand and address things as we can. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name's Elliot. I was just curious about if the budget for the board, if it's made accessible to the public. It didn't seem like easily findable on the website, but if it isn't, why it isn't. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
The budget for the board should be accessible, Elliot, as far as I know. That's something that I'm gonna have to go back and double check. That should be. But let me go back to the board. We do have a meeting this month, and I'll get back to you on that. We'll make sure we get that information out. I appreciate the question, too. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. And this month would be August. We'd be getting it out in August, right?
Okay.
Only because it's July 30th. So that's why I said that.
Elliot, you guys have sent me back to the bylaws more than I've ever been on the bylaws of any board I've been on. So I got to go back and check them, but I will make sure we get that information back to you. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for the question.
Thank you, Elliot.
Are you asking for me to speak now?
Who?
Oh, hi, everyone. I'm Ellen Pendegar. She and her are my pronouns. I am on the board of directors. And I just wanted to respond to also the building, and I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what Jim was saying about that we're trying to think about this in a grand scheme of things. It's so important for me, and I think the center, to be in the center of Kingston, right? But it doesn't necessarily have to stay that way. We might want to have a small presence there and then move somewhere else. the third floor is a possibility of just going back to being a tenant, right? And we could make some rent that way too. So, I mean, I just want to just kind of echo what Jim was saying, is that we're not thinking small. And we really appreciate the feedback of really making sure that we're really doing the best that we can. In the agency that I work with, we get kind of limited about where we move our services because we want to make sure that they're accessible, not only, for wheelchair, but also transportation, and you want to make sure that when you pick a space that people can get there and they can get there easily and successfully. So I know I have some experience with that. And though some of the places that we do services are not ideal, but I know that people can get there because they can take a bus or they can walk. So I just want to make sure when we talk about accessibility, we're trying to think about the whole scheme of things. And I can just tell you, when I think about that building, Kingston, that property is getting more and more valuable, uptown Kingston. So I think we have a valuable resource there, but it might not be the best place to do the programming. So I just want to make sure that you know that, and that when we talk about accessibility, we want to make sure we are thinking about it in the broadest sense, because we don't want to find a space where nobody can get there, because if you don't have a car, you can't get there. So sometimes you get limited on where you can do things because you have to help it be accessible to people who don't have transportation. So I just want to thank you, and I think it's something really worth doing a lot of good thinking. But like Jim said, and I think Phoenix said too, some of this can't happen overnight, and we're trying really our hardest. But thank you so much for making sure that we're becoming alert to these issues. Okay, so I just want to tell you how much I'm grateful for that.
Yeah, thank you. I would also.
I just want to piggyback on what Ellen just said. We're in the midst of a pandemic, and corporate America has really found out that they can work from home. There's going to be a ton of commercial real estate available, a ton, literally. I mean, I know that my company's talking about, why can't we keep some people working at home? Why do we need all the buildings we have down in Manhattan? So commercial real estate we're going to have access to a ton of it. So let us do our work on the board. I think you'll be happy with the results, regardless if we're staying downtown Kingston, in that building, another building, whatever else.
Thanks. The other thing I wanted to say is kind of as a follow-up to the suggestion, I believe it was for speaking with disability advocates. Did I have that correct? Is that as we prepare and start to do the outreach for a needs assessment, please, and this goes out to everyone here, if there are individuals, resource people that you would like us to talk with, please help us with that. We don't know what we don't know, right? So if you have resources, TQ.org email address, and make those recommendations. We're open to talking with people and getting the best needs and resource assessment that we can get for our area. And thank you for the comment about the bus route, because that is a concern. Okay, that's enough out of me. Thanks.
Hi, I'm Fanya. My pronouns are they and them. And I wanted to ask about the response. I mean, you've provided some response to the question of a self-assessment, but there weren't any specific resources mentioned or any details about that plan. And also, on the topic of intersectionality, a lot of what was in our original letter had to do with a need for anti-racist work to be done at the center. And there was no mention of that in the response. Like the word anti-racism didn't appear, cis-sexism, classism, transphobia, none of those words were included in the response. And I think words are important, and we have to name exactly what the problems are that we see. So I wanted to know if there are any specific plans to incorporate anti-racist work.
Fanya, I'm going to start. The board got back to the Queer Alliance in record time, in my opinion. First of all, this is dialogue, right? And we're working together, not just the board and staff, but this entire community. This is the first time we've done this. This is the first time we've been able to hear some of the things that are going on. So I think within a week or 7 days, what we got back to you with, although not answering everything that you wanted to in the detail you wanted, I thought was pretty good. What I am thinking is, as we go to these board meetings, and this is still on the agenda at our board meeting, we will come back with some more. I mean, there was a lot of stuff there on your requests, right? And again, we're still looking at self-assessment across the board, on our board, on the staff, and everybody else across the board. Anti-racist, you're talking to a guy who co-chairs the National Diversity Council for his company. All right, so I'm serious about it. We'll get back to you. I'm sorry we weren't able to get back with all of that detail. That's a really deep one, and we could have handled that itself and not worked on anything else, right? So that we'll be back to you with.
Yeah. Thanks, Jim. I also want to say very similar to that. I'm very aware about, the issue of intersectionality. I mean, when there are the complexities of what we're trying to address, right? And try to make major changes around access and availability and fairness and justice and anti-racism. So I think that as we move forward in those discussions and identify what we think is really the best course, that will become more known, and we'll have no problem sharing that. Again, you can't. It's not prudent to just say, "Well, we're going to do this, this, and this," and not have really had discussion. And as Jim pointed out, to respond to all of those matters that were raised in that letter, and within a time frame that was incredibly tight, we really wanted to show you that we were serious and do due diligence. That means we're doing just that. We're giving you our best in the midst of everything else that we are individually responsible for, to all of the other aspects of our lives, like you have yours, right? Family, work, life, just life right now. Life in this time is extremely challenging. But we're here and we're fully committed. Every board member is fully committed in bringing their heart to this. So I really wanted to voice that. Your words do matter, and we're not going anywhere. We're in this to do the work with you, and I say you, not just to you, Fania, but like the whole community, right? It's LGBTQ plus, and we're here. Thanks.
Hi, I guess I'm up. My name is Jem. My pronouns are she, her. So we've heard, I think we all get that this was very difficult for you to operate in such a short time frame. So we've all heard it. Can we leave that? Can we put that to the side for now? And that can no longer be an answer. So I was going to ask also, I'm just so curious about the thought/discussion process was that led to not using the words black, white, racism, anything, which was a big part of what people talked about. So understanding that you didn't have a lot of time to respond, just could you share some of the discussions inside the board meeting that you did have?
10 minutes.
I'm done.
Jim, the board meeting we did have had a lot of things to deal with. And whether it's a short period of time and whether you're not wanting to hear it took in a short period of time, look, the board has not finished. Everything that you sent us, we're not done. This is not the final assessment of the information we got from Queer Alliance's letter. This is what we were able to approach at that time. This is what we got done in that period of time. This is still an ongoing process for the board. We have not, this is not the final of anything that you guys put there. Nothing's finished. This is a process, and we're working as hard as we possibly can to get it done. We will be talking about everything you talk about. Words do make a difference. They do. And we will address it. Phoenix.
I would just say, Jim, to be honest, we have had so much that we've been discussing that I really choose not to even attempt to answer that because I don't want to risk misspeaking. That discussion, the preliminary discussion to prep for that letter took place, immediately following. The first conversation took place immediately following the listening session, which, was a lot to take in. So I can't answer your question in good faith in a way that I would feel comfortable with. So I can't tell you process, but I acknowledge the question, and that's the best I can do right now. And that, and just second what Jim said, which is, again, we are fully committed to addressing that. All of it, because it's all extremely important. So.
Well, I've been around for a long time. I'm one of the founders of the center, and there are a number of things that have come up that have been very, very disturbing to me. And I want to put a few things in perspective. Number one, the building initially was not accessible. And Ginny Apuzzo, who was then the president of the board, was able to get a member item from the New York State Legislature to put the building in a situation where it was more accessible. And we had a bathroom put in and an elevator. And I think that this is the same kind of thing that could be pursued now. The other thing is, I have worked with RCAL over the years. What they do not only is to work with individuals that have disabilities, they also work with individuals.
15 seconds.
They work with individuals and with programs who need to have accessibility, and they will work with you and come up with plans. And I don't think it's important now for us to move. I think it's great that the center is in an area that's accessible to people that take the bus and can just come in. And I think in all of the new fervor to do this and that and the other thing, you have to look back on the work that has been done and the improvements that we have made and the programs that have been instituted, largely because of Jeff, but also because the community was open to having these things come. So before you throw everything out, think about what's happened.
Bonnie, I'm sorry, we're gonna open to a comment session later if we have time. For now, we're gonna finish with people's questions.
And I just would like to say, Bonnie, that we're not looking to throw anything out. It's not about that. We're going to look and explore as much as we possibly can and not make a unilateral, this is going to be whatever, as we move forward, we're going to be working with community staff and board together to make decisions as to how to best move forward.
Bonnie, I don't want you to misunderstand my comment. What I'm telling you, you listen to one side saying that we need more, we got to get an elevator, we got to do some things, we need ramps, we need this, we need that. And to your point, you guys started a building and you grew. Sometimes you outgrow the building. So there's a give-get. There's a give and a get, right? So depending on what happens, I would love for that building to stay downtown. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I think being downtown is a big deal. But if you start asking for things that we can't deliver with the building, and it's important to the community on an overall, and that's the vote, then we might have to look for another building. So that's the loss and that's the get. That's all.
Hi, my name is Said. I use they, them, or he, him pronouns. My question is, doesn't necessarily need a response. It's something that I'd like everybody to ask themselves. But first I would need to preface it by saying that the Queer Alliance was founded on principles of restorative justice, right? We're not here showing up to tell any individual that you are a bad person, that you are wrong, that there's something inherently wrong with you, right? Like, that's not the foundation of this, okay? The foundation of all of our actions have been to create healing and create repair where harm has been done. And that's why it may have seemed like we came off heavy-handed. And that was just a result of the ways that everybody has been writing emails and been shut down, right? So it's like we knew that we needed to come on strong to be heard, to be seen, to actually have this happen because things are so minimized. So my question is, why are we defensive, right? Like, why are you defensive? Like, why are people defending the center right now? Like, are you defending
seconds?
Is it like, are you really defending the center? Is it personal? Like, genuinely ask yourself that. Like, what are you protecting that you feel so defensive? Like, we're not here to make your life miserable or anything. We're here to foster change and create repair. So my question is for everybody, right? Like, anybody who's feeling defensive, what are you defending?
Thank you.
Is that a question for me, Said, or that's just a general statement you said? As far as feeling defensive, because I don't feel defensive at all.
Either.
I don't. I don't feel defensive at all. I'm just expressing, answering questions, and the stuff we can't answer, we won't answer right now, and we'll make sure that we get that information and get back to you. It's not defensive.
Carolyn, you're unmuted.
Oh, I was going to pass because I mostly have a comment.
Okay.
Okay, we'll come back in the comments.
Other questions?
It's me, Ellen Pendegar, again, one of the board members. I wanted to share what I spoke about at the board meeting. I expressed that I know that I grew up in a culture where I was taught to be a racist. I think it's very difficult, and I'm not really sure that anybody who grew up in our culture could honestly say that they're not a racist. Does that mean that I'm not trying to be a better person and to be anti-racist? That's my goal right now. I think I hopefully have been doing that throughout my life. And I think if I just had an opportunity to say that out loud, and I think we want to move forward and acknowledging that you can't, I don't think you can be growing up in our culture without that in your being. And I know I've been on the planet longer than some of you, but I don't know how much that's really changed, and even in your lifetime, unfortunately. And maybe it has, and I would really appreciate this. But I can tell you I'm committed to being anti-racist and trying to erase all, and I think I've tried very hard throughout my life, but I can't honestly tell you that it's gone, because I expressed where I came from. I grew up in a small town about 2 hours from here, right? It was white. I think I knew one person of color that was Black in my community. And I knew one person who was Jewish. So how do you grow up in that kind of environment and not be caught up in all of the racism in our society? So we do, as people in this United States, we need to be better. We have to be better. Mm-hmm. And I can promise you I'm trying to, and I will be a voice, and I'm really convinced that the people on the board are committed to be anti-racist. Mm-hmm. But are we going to be perfect? I can't, I don't know, I can't, I'm working on it, and I'm trying to, and I think the board's working on it too. So I could just tell you thank you, and to realize that It's great to hear the younger voices doing that, but believe me, I've heard recently where they want to say, well, the younger people have to, are the power. I'm not giving up that power. I have power too. I'm still here. I still want to be part of the solution. Okay, that's all I just want to say. I want you to know that we're taking this seriously, and I hope that was helpful, and I hope it made sense.
Yeah, thank you. Before we go to the next person, if I can, I just want to. Is that all right, Renita?
Oh no, it was in the sense of if questions and answers session was finished, the staff has one question before we finish the question and answer.
Okay, can I just want to also speak to what Ellen just said, and that is, I don't have the letter, memorized of the opening of that letter, but I know that it was written from the spirit of this, and I'm paraphrasing it, but we are in a time of great awakening and the call to action across the board, whether it's racism, classism, sexism, ableism. I mean, homophobia, transphobia, and how it impacts lives. And we are, I'm with Ellen in this, extremely committed, and have been in my own personal journey and process on lots of levels because of how I'm striving to live my life and share and who I share my life with. And it is incredibly important to me on every level to address my white-bodied privilege and protections. And how do I walk with that and be a voice for change? And again, I'm going to come back and also say what Ellen is saying, and it's just said with that. This board is committed to doing that and doing that work. And I've said before in other circles, I am not woke, I'm waking. And I'm just doing my best to keep waking up and taking action, because it's not enough to be awake. I have to do the work, right? And I own that. And I'm telling you, the collective you, I own that, and I'm working on it. And that's the best. Again, I keep coming back to, all I can do is my best, and I'm going to be giving this my best for as long as I'm able to. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I think that one of the ways to do that work, you opened this meeting by listing the top 10 accomplishments of the board and the center in the last year. And I think that's a lot of those were incredible steps. And it is important to constantly move forward and especially engage in anti-racist work, in greater accessibility, everything that we've been talking about, right? So I would maybe want to invite the board to think about a top 10 list of areas that you think you could really grow in. What are the, or maybe what are the bottom 10? I think that is the kind of self-searching that could be really transformative.
15 seconds.
Rather than just being, a Band-Aid or something quick, then really starting that process of thinking about like, what are the areas, and being transparent about what those areas are, where real improvement can be made. Thank you.
Thank you. I love your suggestion.
Go ahead, Jim.
Alice, I love what you said. I think it's great. We started with the top 10, and part of that, I'm one of those board members kind of jumps right out at you. I don't want that work that we did to get lost in what we're trying to do better. That's why that top 10 came out. But as far as the bottom 10, we're working on that every day. I think that we're going to need not just this board, not just the staff, but we're going to need the community to dive in with us and identify some of those things. I think what you've come up with to get this change is brilliant. I really do. What I'd like to do is see, as far as Queer Alliance is, who are Queer Alliance? Who are these individuals who are on the Queer Alliance? I think that that's important so that we can get them involved in some of the decision-making process, right? You know everybody on the board. We're raising our hand. Here we are. I mean, Queer Alliance, I need you. I need everybody in this community, and not just Queer Alliance. This community needs to come together to make that center a place that everybody's proud of. That's what I'm on there for. That's why Jim's on the board. So yes, we could think about things and we work on things on a day. Sometimes you get caught up in the minutiae as board meetings and you don't get to the things that are very important to the community. The community should get involved with it, and we have to find a way to connect more with and have some of those individuals involved in the board and some on the board. We're looking for that help from you. So I don't have all the answers, and if I did, I'd have it all straight today. We don't. We need you.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. And I echo that and add to it in that, the first letter that we received, because I haven't seen the second yet, but there was the request, right, to have a meeting and speak with the board. Great, like Jim said, but we do want more than that. There's 5 seats open on the board. This is a call to the community. This is a big lift. Right? It's not going to be done by just a board of directors or just the board and the staff. This is this has to be a we, a real big collective we. We are a huge community. We are diverse. And we have very different places in the sense of experience and what we're contending with in our different lives. And to be able to come to a very big, I hope, a very big table with the heart that is open and ears that are open to actually hear one another in that respectful kind of collective space, which is not always easy. But we are all here because we love the center, we love this community, and we want it to grow and evolve to the best possible place it can be. And no one board of directors and one group of very talented, dedicated staff can just magically make that happen. So please, we got that, the board application and what is about being a board member, it is up. Please, we want to have to start the process of vetting applicants.
I'm looking forward to it.
So we want people to please. It's a 3-year commitment. Check it out. But please, the financial barriers have been removed. So
and I'm learning every day. And I need you to help teach.
I believe, unless there's any more questions.
Yeah, there is one.
Okay.
Thanks.
So we're not done with questions, Renita.
Okay. So should I go now?
Please.
All right.
Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for letting me speak again. And thank you, Ellen, for actually naming racism. Much appreciated. And thank you for all that you said, Phoenix, about actually listening and being heard. So I wanted to just, there's a question that Billy asked in the chat that I wanted to say out loud, so hopefully it can be heard and responded to, which is the official board position that no one had shared these concerns prior to the first letter from the Queer Alliance?
That is not the official board position, no.
Okay. I'm asking because you've said a lot of times that you were kind of like, you only had a week to think about it. It was a lot of suggestion that it kind of was very sudden and you only had a little bit of time to respond. So you're saying that that's not the first you'd heard about that?
No, it isn't. No.
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Are we moving on to comments? So I know how much time I'm to allow. Are questions done? Okay, so we are now moving on to comments. Just piggybacking on what Jim had said, the staff in full transparency appreciates everybody who's here and is curious on full transparency on who is on the Queer Alliance.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bob Boudreau. My pronouns are he, him, his. And I just wanted to say that this what I see has to be a work in progress. I have been with numerous organizations who have tried to address racism. They've tried to address inequality. They've tried to address women's rights in such a way, and they did it so fast, it was wrong. It made things worse because they didn't take the time to deliberately think about the ramifications of each process. So I would urge all of the people that are involved here to allow the process to be. Don't allow the process to go on too long, but allow the process to be. Queer Alliance will have better results if the board has the opportunity to really research and address the issues. And now that the community is involved and the community has heard your issues from Queer Alliance, now the community can hold the board of directors in the center responsible for making the changes that need to be made. And I have to agree with Phoenix. If we want to see change, it's going to take a hell of a lot more than a letter to a board of directors. It's going to take your direct commitment to working with the board of directors to see that those changes happen. We've had a lot of questions about things that, quite honestly, the board has had. And if I'm at 15 seconds or a minute, whatever, tell me to shut up and I will. We have had very little time from the main letter that I saw. I don't know how far back Queer Alliance has started this process, but from the letter I saw, having any answers in a month and a half, 2 months is a Band-Aid. It's not a solution. If we want a fix that's going to be solid, that's going to continue, we have to do it the right way. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Hi, everyone. My name is Leah. You see him, his, or they, them, theirs pronouns. I want to say a couple of things that I've been witnessing in kind of the ways that folks have been responding. I am a facilitator and strategist around diversity, inclusion, and equity. I've been literally in these meetings all day, all week, and I'm here now because this is my community and where I want to be contributing my time. And the conversations the groups I want to be in conversation with, not whether or not, regardless of being a client in this space, but it is the work that I do on a regular basis. And I want to just note that there's a couple of things that just feel like they're a little bit disconnected. One is that I heard there was an invitation to question defensiveness. And I heard that question before it was asked because I was also experiencing defensiveness. And so with the response from the co-directors was, I'm not defensive, but the community is saying, we are experiencing you as defensive. It's something to say, please listen and hear that as a way that you are being read in the way that you're showing up in the space of responding to people's comments and ideas with an answer right away, as opposed to just a reflection that maybe something wasn't handled the way that it could have been handled. Particularly on the issue of including race or racism in the letter, I think that there's a real question around whether or not there needs to be an answer of how it's going to be fixed versus an acknowledgement of what has been asked, and that the actual process that you might be in at this moment is not knowing exactly what step to take next, but identifying that you are going to be figuring out what steps to take next. Because absent the words is the same type of erasure that folks are already communicating having experienced in the organization. And so being able to bring in, saying like, we see the erasure, it still feels like erasure. And that then comes to the conversation of trust. I've heard that also come up, like trust that we're doing it, trust that we're working on it, and we want to trust, but know that this is coming a far cry because we're coming into this conversation already experiencing not having the actual responses after we had been trusting that this was going to happen. And so this is the moment where we say, we are going to do the best we can. We are here as a process of trust, but you also need to trust our analysis when we say we are not seeing it. It is a concern. We are still worried and we want to go along with you, but please hear our worries as valid and true. I also want to name that I am not necessarily a member of the Queer Alliance. I'm here to support the Queer Alliance because the Queer Alliance has raised issues that I already had. it was not because I saw the Queer Alliance and said, oh my gosh, let's be a group of people and what issues do you have? It's because I had issues that were showing up for me and really limited my ability to contribute my work and my efforts to the center. And so with that, I saw that the Queer Alliance was bringing these issues in, and I wanted to support that. So it's not that we are just one ubiquitous group of people, that there are a lot of different people who are coming together, but actually feel heard and seen through the conversations that the Queer Alliance is bringing. And that's why we're actually generating this together and to be part of the solutions together. And I'm hoping to actually continue those dialogues with you all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Riccardi, she and her pronouns. I really like this meeting. I feel really strongly about what I've heard tonight, both on all sides of the conversation. I just wanted to say a couple of things. Like, one is this year I'm celebrating 31 years being out. I remember the first time I went to the Lesbian and Gay Community Center in the West Village and how afraid I was. And I've always viewed centers as a key foundational survival institution that is, you know, critical to our community. And that when I moved up here to the Hudson Valley 13 years ago, I felt that the center in Kingston was falling short on a lot of levels to do that. And I think that, you know, one issue was to me to see the community embrace more of the TGNC and B community, the trans, non-binary, and gender non-conforming community, but also to have accessible mental health professionals that could provide key services to members of our community that were most at risk and most in need of them. I think, like, you know, at the last meeting, there was a moment where, like, I really felt that there was this vibe of, like, that there were all these new issues coming up, you know, like, and that people just hadn't had the opportunity to absorb them. And that's really hard to hear on so many levels. You know, the summer of 1989, the summer I came out, Yusef Hawkins was murdered by a gang of white kids in Bensonhurst. That was the summer of, you know, so many issues of racial injustice that occurred in New York. And those things were a part of my coming out and part of my realization of how I had to change and transform as a person. So it really resonated me what Ellen said earlier about that, of being white and understanding that we have to evolve and change. And it hurts when, you know, people act as if these issues have not been omnipresent in the center. And I've worked a lot with all of the center staff, many of them, you know, Jeff included. And, you know, there's been, you know, olive branches and attempts to reach out and to make the center better. And, you know, they've fallen short. But this is an opportunity for all of us to come together and do something very critical. And I just want to say, I'm not a part of the Queer Alliance. I like the Queer Alliance. It's got the name queer in it. But I do not view the center as an activist institution. And, you know, it would take a long time to explain what I mean by that. I view this as a survival institution for our community. And so my political activism can come through and out of the center, but I want the center to have its own goals and needs that it's serving in our community. And I think we can juggle these things as a community together. You know, I think it's true. Like, here's the thing, like, people are asking you to step up and take leadership. You need to take the reins and take leadership. That's what we need to do. And not everybody's going to be in a position in their lives to do that. But for those of us that have the opportunity, this is an opportunity. There are 5 board seats. We should take them. There are people asking us to join in the process of making things better. This is our chance to make a difference. And so we need to step up. Thank you. Come on, buddy.
Thank you very much, Carolyn.
For sure.
Kathy, You're unmuted.
Thank you. Kathy, she, her. So just a couple of comments. We've been listening, Dottie and I, who's here, for the last 2 meetings. And when people were talking about intersectionality, as a good academic, I looked it up. And one of the things, according to wherever I read, talked about age as one of the issues of intersectionality. And older age in particular, people are really made invisible. And so the accessibility issues have been a challenge as we have gotten older. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in. And then the center has had a definition of membership that has really evolved over the years. It used to be you had to pay dues, and then people didn't want to have people pay dues. And now it sounds like there's 2 groups, the center and the Queer Alliance. And the folks in the Queer Alliance seem to be really clear that they're in the Queer Alliance. But then who's really in the center? Who can really call themselves a member of the center? And if we are members of the center, what are our obligations to the center? And what can the center provide for us? That's all.
Thank you.
Okay, hi. Those are good questions, Kathy. There used to be UMRETS. I've been a volunteer since, I think some of you know me, since 2007, when the center, you know, they started, Ginny Apuzzo and the founders, and they put a call out to action, and we all responded because we wanted a safe place for all of us to be, LGBTQ people. And I feel like we created it. It's not perfect. And I know you think, oh, we're defensive. It's not that we're defensive. It's just our hearts are with the center. We love it because we helped create it. And I think if you help create something, when you help create something, it's like your baby, you know? And then when people are saying, oh, it's not perfect, it's not good enough, it's not good enough, it's hard. It's hard to hear. But, you know, we're on here because we are trying to listen. And I'm just wondering a couple of things, like why are there 5 vacancies on the board? I'm just surprised about that. And who is on the board? And I think, yes, let's all, we're a family and we don't always agree. You know, you all have biological families or families of, you know, and you don't always agree with your family members, right? You have your ideas, they have their ideas, but we have to figure out a way to come together and figure it out because you know what? We're all in this together. I know that sounds, I'm sorry, but we are. And there's no one else out there that's going to then help us. We have to do it ourselves. And that's my, you know, message. We all have to do this ourselves. We can't look out to someone else. And if it's not good, it's not good. There are things, anti-racism work has to be done. Anti-Semitic too. I mean, there are a lot of anti-Semitism happening and I see it a lot. And I wanted to just add that. And they're all the isms and we have to do something about that. And I totally agree with that also. And the Black Lives Matter, that's really the movement now and it needs to be supported too by the center. And anyway, so who are the board members? And that's also just a question I wanted to have before. And why are there 5 openings? And let's fill those openings. So thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. As far as the board of directors, we announced ourselves in the beginning. Maybe we should raise our hands now just to make sure that everybody knows who we are. Okay. And I know it wasn't a question, but with the 5 openings, some of this was term. So, you know, a lot of this was just being at the end of the term. as far as some of the members. But, with that, the opportunity now is tremendous as far as bringing in some of the community. I'm an older guy on the team. We need some youth there too. So young, if we need a young-ism, I need some young too on that team. We need the help on the team, on that board. With 5 spots, there's plenty of room. So please fill out the application. We're looking forward to having to vet the individuals for these opportunities. Any other?
Yeah, hi. This is Evie Starr. I use they, them pronouns. I have a question for Jim and Phoenix. Have you read the response that the Queer Alliance sent today?
No, we didn't get a chance to read it as of yet.
Okay.
We did not.
And Phoenix? And any of the other board members for that matter?
Well, Phoenix had to drop off. I know that I was made aware of the response. I was asking for the response earlier this week and last week, and we had not gotten it. And I was made aware of that response about an hour before this meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hi,
I'm looking forward to reading their response.
Okay, I think I'm next. I look a little creepy because I'm in a boatyard garage stealing their Wi-Fi. I just want to piggyback on Ellis's comment earlier about the board, asking the board to put down their 10 things that they really want to see changed, because I think those 5 openings are really important, but I'm not sure who wants to risk coming on a board without really knowing where the passion is right now and where you're identifying the need to change, so that coming in, I'm coming in because these people are on board with what I feel is really important. And I know that they're going to hear me. They've heard what people are saying, and we're going to work together on something, rather than risking coming on a board where the priorities of the board for change are so different, or are, just not something that you feel you can contribute to. So I would throw out the challenge that I think Ellis was throwing out, which is, please let us know where you, as the present board, see what change you need to work on now to respond to everything you've heard. And not just getting a consultant in for this or that, but really where you're going. I hope I represented what Ellis had said. That's what I heard. Thanks.
I appreciate that, Donna, and yes, yeah, we will.
Hi, say it again. They, them, or he, him. I had something to say, but I also just wanted to quick follow up on what Donna said about us joining the board, or whoever joining the board, people joining the board, right? If like learning about intersectional feminism is work, right? Like it's training, it's learning, it's reframing your way of understanding the world, it's dismantling all these things that you have like perceived about yourself. So if you're inviting in a bunch of people who are really rad and who are doing that work to people who are new to it and just kind of learning about what intersectional feminism is essentially asking the people that are coming on to be doing that education, right? And that's a lot to ask. So I'm just wanted to follow up and be like, if there is that ask, it seems really important that there's also an attempt to make sure that everybody else is kind of getting on board and catching up to that kind of intersectional education. So that I just wanted to add to Donna's point. But what I wanted to say about asking the Queer Alliance to come out and say who we are is like, I'll do that, right? There's a couple other people who have revealed that, but I think that there's kind of 2 points to make about that. One, which is that the Queer Alliance is beyond just the people that showed up at this particular meeting where that particular sentence got written, that read this particular paragraph here, right? Like the Queer Alliance isn't just like one like thing, right? Like it's not that easy, right? And it's not like the people that wrote the letter and are people that just did it in a vacuum, right? It's like there's plenty of people that could have written that letter and would have written that letter if they were available that day, if they had time that week, like, you know, and that have actually contributed to these critiques, which have been being developed for a long time in the whole community. So that's one thing about the fuzzy boundaries of the Queer Alliance. And then another thing is that there's been a couple of cases when people have written to the center about particular things And the response has been to throw somebody else under the bus or to gaslight somebody. Like, that is just something that has happened. And we know that. So it does not make sense for us all to come out when we know that that could be done, right? Like, I'm doing that right now. I see that Jeff is making a really puzzled face at that, which is really interesting because, what does that reveal to you, that you are having such a visual reaction on your face? So anyway, asking the Queer Alliance to come out is, I don't know, maybe not that productive, because maybe we don't all need to come out. We're all representing the community. And also, I want to make sure everybody that's a part of it is safe. So obviously I'm not like scared anybody's going to physically attack them, but would their character be tarnished by y'all defensively? I don't know. It's been done before. It seems like you're taking a different approach this time, which is awesome. And so it seems like now maybe it would be safe, like emotionally and connection-wise, community-wise, for people to come out. But we don't know that, right? Like, this is kind of new being heard by y'all. So we're kind of taking it slow.
I appreciate your comment, Side. I agree. I know we're getting toward the end of this. Are there any other comments before we close?
Yes. So, sort of echoing what Donna and Sade have both said, not only does this call for new board members ask people to put a sort of blind trust into the current board that they're going to change, even though there's been no real, nothing has shown us that that's going to happen, and asking those people to do a lot of work. It's asking those people to put their physical safety in a really questionable position. Like, the board has shown, or the center has shown, that like this isn't really a place where our voices are heard a lot of the time. So like, let's say I were to apply for this board position, go through the board's vetting process, and like join the board. How do I know that I would be heard? How do I know that I would be gendered correctly in a board meeting when nothing has shown me that those things are going to happen? That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. It is 8:29. I need to thank everyone who has taken the time to come out and voice and ask the questions. This is the kind of thing we need to make this center progressive. This is what we need more of in order to make the movement. The offering on the board and all the rest of that, at the end of the day, we want everybody who's come on this Zoom today is focused in for a positive change. I'm sure of that, including myself and every board member that's there. And hopefully we could take the information. This was a taped venue. Take this back, spend some time to digest it. I think someone did bring that to our attention for us to take it in, review it, take the time to review all the comments that were made here. There was a lot of stuff, talked about on the last Zoom call. There's a lot talked about on this one. So we have to get back and digest this, and we will. There's a lot of dialogue going back and forth. I mean, there's your response, that the Queer Alliance's response that came in an hour, for me anyway, before this meeting. I want to make sure that we have the time to address that as well. And we will be back. This is different. This is a change. This is a new way of approaching things, and we will continue with this dialogue to make a better place, to make that center good for everybody who is there. Does any of the other board members want to make a comment before we exit tonight?
Before you finish, there was one hand up. Bob had a hand up before you even started commenting.
Why don't we take Bob?
He took his hand down.
Did Bob want to say something? Okay. Does any of the board members, the other thing I want to say is anyone who did not have a chance to speak tonight can fill out that Google form and submit it. We're taking that and looking at that as well. And if anyone would like to reach out for a personal response, please indicate that on the form, and we will respond to that individual. Board and staff, the center. Duffy, I see that your hand is up.
Before we get to Duffy, Bob did unmute to make that comment.
Thank you, Liz. Again, this is Bob Woodrow, and I appreciate the comments by members of the Queer Alliance about safety. I understand that. I want to be very honest with you all. I've had my issues as well with the center over the years that it's been in existence. Some of them have been resolved, some of them haven't been resolved, and I appreciate that you guys are moving forward, trying to make some change. As far as safety, as far as gendering and misgendering, the only way we make change is to be involved in that change. And if we want to see it go forward, we have to hold those others accountable. And the only way that we can honestly do that is to be involved in that action. I'm not a young guy. I'm not an old guy. I'm in my 60s. I've been on many boards of directors. This stuff hasn't been going on just the last decade. This has been going on for as long as this country has been in existence. We have to make this change together. We cannot sit back and expect other people to do it. And I understand it's a big lift to have to train or teach other people about intersexuality or intersectionality. I understand that there's a lot of work that has to be done. It doesn't mean that it has to be done by you. It means that you have to be involved in the process to hold people accountable. If it means that the center spends some money to bring in experts to train or to send people away to training, that's what it means. I want to see this center succeed. I have been involved in the gay and lesbian community since 1974. I don't want to see what Kingston has and what the Hudson Valley has go backwards. So please, whether you're a member of the Queer Alliance or not, if you believe that the center needs to make change, take up the call to action. Even if you don't join the board, go to the board meetings when it's allowed. Get on committees, do committee work. Be a part of that change, not just through a letter and not just through these forums. Be involved in that change. I will make my commitment to you. If I ever am with any of you at the center, I will treat you with respect and kindness. And if I make a mistake, I will expect that you will correct me, and I will take that and grow with it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be reviewing the comments of the staff and board, and will respond as soon as possible. As stated in our written letter to the LGBTQ+ community, we'll be hosting 2 community listening panels every year and are accessible via the email address that has been created and posted on the center's website. I want to thank everybody again for taking the time out. I know this means a lot. I know this is a lot of work. I know we together as a community can make it happen if we work together. Thank you.
Did that come through? Okay, try it one more time. Can everybody hear me? Okay. Duffy Violante, a member of the board. What I was saying is we need to have some trust in each other. There just doesn't seem to be any mutual trust. And if we're going to grow and make this work, we need to have a little bit of trust. I know in the past, maybe that hasn't been there. Most of us are new on the board. We're trying to make this work. How about a little trust back and forth? We're trusting you're going to give us your word and help us. We're trusting that you're going to take our word that we're working on it. That's the only way we're going to get there. we're in the, you know, we may have got here on different boats, but we're on different ships. We're in the same boat now. If we want to make this work for our community, we all have to work together, and we have to have some trust, starting now, starting again, starting anew. Make it work. We can do it. Thank you.